All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's on the Power. So in this video, I want to talk about the 2004 Mr. Olympia with two specific bodybuilders in mind. Now, one of those bodybuilders is obviously Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman, 8-time Mr. Olympia, obviously won that year's 2004 Mr. Olympia. And many people will say that either 2004 or 1998 were the best version of Ronnie Coleman. Now, in 1998, Ronnie Coleman was a downsized version of Ronnie Coleman, but he was much more aesthetic. He had a much smaller waist, and he just had a better flow to his physique. And a lot of people prefer that 1998 Olympia Ronnie. But in 2004, however, that was the year where Ronnie just kind of went balls to the walls, and he said, I'm going to come in as big as possible. I'm going to come in so big and freaky, I'm just going to slam the door in everybody's face, and it's going to be undeniable that I am Mr. Olympia. Now, in 2004, Ronnie Coleman did this, weighing his biggest on stage at 296 pounds, stage weight, contest condition. This isn't off-season Ronnie Coleman. This is in shape, nearly 300 pounds of muscle, Ronnie Coleman. So the other bodybuilder from the 2004 Mr. Olympia that I wanted to talk about here was Markus Ruhl. Now, Markus Ruhl dominated the early 2000s as being known for the mass monster. This guy was one of the biggest guys of the early 2000s and late 90s, and that was his calling card. It was coming in with that freaky size, sometimes freaky conditioning, sometimes his conditioning was off. But when his conditioning was on, he was one of the freakiest guys you had ever seen on stage. And he came into the 2004 Olympia 16 pounds lighter than Ronnie Coleman at 280 pounds, standing 5'10". Now, Ronnie's actually a little bit taller than Markus Ruhl here. He was 5'11", and 296 pounds at this Olympia. Markus Ruhl was 5'10", 280. So that just goes to show how massive Ronnie Coleman was in 2004, that this guy, Markus Ruhl, who was known for being the biggest, the freakiest, maybe not the prettiest physique to look at, but he was outsized by the champ Ronnie Coleman by 16 pounds of stage weight. And keep in mind, this period of time during the early 2000s, these were good years for Markus Ruhl. This is when Markus Ruhl came in around his best from that 2002 to 2005-ish time range. He was winning that Night of Champions back in 2002, and at this particular Olympia, he placed top 5, taking that 5th place spot and taking home 30 grand. Now, keep in mind here, this is one of the first years that Ronnie Coleman was actually bigger than Markus Ruhl. I mean, in the past, Coleman was in the 270s, and Markus Ruhl was always a heavier guy. So in many instances throughout the past, Markus Ruhl was the bigger bodybuilder when it came down between him and Coleman. But Coleman, at the end of the day, had the better physique despite being smaller. But in this scenario, I'll grant you that his waist was a little bit bigger here. Ronnie's waist was, as a result of getting so much bigger. But I don't think people realize what an accomplishment coming in at 296 pounds on stage is. I mean, that is something that was like groundbreaking in 2004. And the fact that Markus Ruhl, who is considered to be this giant bodybuilder throughout the early 2000s, was just destroyed by Coleman in size, in conditioning, the front, the back, the side, every aspect. Ronnie Coleman destroyed him at that 2004 Olympia. And there had been shows in the past where people made an argument that, Ruhl should have beat Coleman. Some of those Grand Prix shows, some of those GNC shows of strength. There were many cases where Markus Ruhl, you could make an argument, had looked better than Coleman in the past. So I thought it would be an enjoyable comparison for you guys to look at a guy like Markus Ruhl versus a guy like Ronnie Coleman at his biggest, because I don't think people really realize how big Ronnie Coleman really was when he came in at 296 pounds on stage. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.